What's up, everybody? Ryan the Mighty Quinn here, the Cornerman _MMA vlog for a UFC fight announcement. So the UFC announced that at UFC 286, two top 10 ranked middleweights are going to be going at it. We have Roman Dolidze, who just pulled an upset win over Dustin Hermanson, previously unranked, going against Dustin, who was ranked number 8, now took his spot. He's now ranked 8th, eighth in the world in the middleweight division, going against Marvin Vettori. Marvin was previously ranked 3rd, and he just had a loss to, he had a good showing against Robert Whittaker. Who doesn't lose to Robert Whittaker? He's, not the champion, but he's the official gatekeeper. He was ranked number 3rd, now pushed back to 4. So we got 4 and 8 in the world. UFC 286 is actually shaping up to be a really good card. And Dolidze, Extreme Couture member. There was another fight announced where another Extreme Couture fighter is going to be announced. So Extreme Couture is going to have their hands full that night. So strength and weaknesses, it's pretty glaringly obvious what we're going at that. We usually break down previous fight announcements, who wins where. We go anywhere from wrestling to ground and pound to jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. I think the overall stand-up obviously favors Marvin. Great boxing, known for his boxing, boxer first. And then the ground obviously goes to my man Roman Dolidze. Obviously that was really flashy, some stuff he showed in that previous fight against Dustin. Former FILA world champion, I believe, or second in the FILA worlds, accomplished grappler, declarated grappler. So that leaves the wrestling. Who's going to win the wrestling? Right now I have it a wash. I have it both ways. But what kind of wrestling? So are we going to see Marvin doing that defensive wrestling to keep the striking game going? Sprawl and brawl, as we used to call it. It's not really called that anymore, but that was the style we, so to speak, Chuck Liddell known for. Or are we going to see that Matt Hughes-esque, as we used to call it, with the wrestling, the submission wrestling, take down offensive wrestling for Roman to the ground. So what are we going to see there? We have a wash. We will see who implements that X Factor fight night. So let's break it down. Let's start with Marvin. How does Marvin win this fight? If I'm Marvin, I'm not really changing much, just keeping it real disciplined. The problem with some strikers, Marvin doesn't really have this problem. Actually, I was really, really impressed by the way he didn't show this problem against Robert Whittaker, because Robert's so good at creating danger in these instances. Is get those hands going, keep your hands in his face. If get your boxing game moving. If I'm Marvin, hands in his face to body shots, really rip up that body. Hands to his face to set up body shots. That's how I'm looking to win this fight. Chip him down that way. Roman's a pretty big dude. Those body shots really pay dividends, but don't get too greedy. Like I said, he does a very good job of coming in and not being susceptible to a takedown or even counter punches. If Robert Whittaker wasn't able to pull it off easy, I can't see Roman being able to pull it off that well either. Now, when I say don't be greedy, what do I mean by that? So if you come forward, step offline. Don't look for the knockout punch on every blitz. Especially against the southpaw, the predominantly southpaw and Roman Dolidze. Make sure you keep that foot on the outside. Combination, step off, combination, land your shots, step off, step off, step off. Make it your exchange, win your exchange, and then step off. Don't stand around for the receipt, as we used to say in boxing. That's how he's going to do it. Just chip away at the fighter. Maybe if he's ripping at body shots, I think that's going to be his Sunday punches, so to speak, in this fight. If he can land those body shots, maybe the knockout will come later. Chop down the big guy, keep it moving. So let's stand off. Let's go to, how does Dolidze win this fight? Now, obviously, we saw in his last fight, he's known a specialty fighter, grappling on the ground, but he's got to get that fight to the ground. How's he going to do that? Now, he really should be working his boxing this camp going into this fight. Now, when I say his boxing, I do not mean he needs to work his hands. I do not mean that. You have to understand, throwing hands in boxing is like the last piece of the puzzle. His footwork's pretty good. He stands the center of the cage really well. He doesn't let fighters like Dustin, even though Dustin really, Hermanson really chopped down some calf kicks on him, really ate up those calves. He really stands the center well. However, he does need to be a little more lucid, a little more fluid. If he's doing that, he's not going to give up those leg kicks, those calf kicks like he did in his previous fight. Dustin wasn't even setting those up with punches towards like the end of those exchanges. He was just throwing those calf kicks so bad that the southpaw and Dolidze had to switch right-handed, and then he got the other side chopped down. Really makes you wonder what would have happened in the third round. So what does he got to do? He stands pretty flat-footed. You got to get that head moving. You have to move that head. You have to move that head. You have to feint. You have to make Marvin Vettori think about something. What's behind that feint? He's got that head. Why else is he moving that head? First of all, it's defense. It's automatic defense is moving your head, but he's also going to be able to slip punches and get underneath for those takedowns and body locks that the jiu-jitsu practitioner likes to do. You see a lot of everybody, but a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners, they like to get against the fence. Roman's a big dude, rush him against the fence, get that body lock to the takedown. I'm sure he's got some slick trips going on, all those jiu-jitsu guys do. So that's what he's got to do. Just keep that head, keep that, get a jab moving. My hands were the worst part of my game. So I had to get a good jab to camouflage my weaknesses in my stand-up against better strikers. So he's got to get that jab moving. He's got to bring that boxing level up, not to match the boxing. Remember, we don't want to go into his strengths, but we want to get to our strengths. So he's got to raise that boxing level up enough to get where he wants to be. And that's on the ground. So he's just got to do enough, get that jab move feint, moving those heads, slipping under punches to get that clinch, pull that wet blanket game on Marvin and try to get it to the ground. And then once he's on the ground, again, Marvin, he showed fairly good grappling defense. Don't rush, just get that wrist control, roll it forward, make him wear on Marvin, land some punches, just score. Submissions present themselves, especially, he showed in his last fight, he gets back control really well. Just punch, the submissions / ground and pound will present themselves. He's got pretty good ground and pound. He's not just jiu-jitsu on the ground, even though we got to do a video on these specialty fighters and what qualifies as a specialty fighter. Overall, his ground is devastating. So that's how I'm winning that fight. Just be very, very disciplined, work that boxing mechanics, just enough to get where we want to be. His counter offense will be slipping underneath to get the clinch, the body lock, the takedown, the double leg, and do it that way. Now, let's talk about adjustments. If I'm Marvin, and for some reason, the game's not working. He's taking me down. He's shooting underneath. I can't get my boxing off. I would cheat more into my boxing stance. I would, a traditional boxing stance is a lot more bladed than mixed martial arts, which I think is starting to change a little bit. But I would get into that boxing stance a little bit more because what does that do? That presents him away the double leg, so to speak. That leads to single. I would make Roman beat me with single legs now as I'm trying to work my boxing in, just trying to work my striking. We'll get to why I said striking in a second. A lot of these jiu-jitsu practitioners, a lot of people in mixed martial arts, even wrestlers lose it. Single legs aren't really finished very well, running the pipe and everything like that. People just the double legs just so sexy, so to speak, in mixed martial arts. I would make Roman beat me with single legs. He might even do that off the bat. Make Roman beat me with single legs. Take that gamble, blade that body. Because what's going to happen is if you're in that more boxing stance, it's going to allow for more boxing to flow, which is what Marvin wants to do anyway. Now, notice I keyed in on the stance. If the corner's seeing this, the reason why they're doing this is because, like I said, Roman tends to be very stiff in his stance, so his hands are up high, which is why I think the body punches are going to be good for this fight for Marvin. But also, as well as blading into that boxing stance, I would start unloading body kicks. If I'm the corner, I'm letting Marvin know body kicks are there because Roman does get high and open all this. Now, usually against somebody that is looking to take you down, body kicks can be a little dangerous. But given if Marvin's losing this fight, it's because he's getting slipped his punches under. He's going to need to throw some punches to whip and chop down that body to stay at range, from that boxing stance. Now, that's the adjustment. I'm going from boxing in my regular stance to kickboxing in my boxing stance. That's how I'm winning this fight. Make it boxing to kickboxing and go back to it. That's the adjustments for Marvin. Now, if Roman's losing this fight, he can't get the fight to the ground. Plain and simple. That's what it is. So how do we got to win this fight? How do we got to get this fight to the ground, or how do we got to knock out Marvin? If I am Roman's corner, I'm letting him know, move your head and punch off the head movement. Let your head movement and slips decide what punch is coming off your offensive, okay? He does have a pretty good overhand right, or overhand left, rather. So, slip and punch, slip left, right hook, stuff like that. What is it's gonna make Marvin have to cover up, maybe stop him in his tracks, or a straight left hand to the body to stop Marvin's forward progress, which it could also be in the primary game plan. You know, to wear on him, to grab that ugly clinch, to land more power shots, and then get it to the ground. If he's going to be throwing with his head movement, or throwing to the body, throwing punches with his head movement, it's going to get Marvin to cover up as well as stop him in front of him. That way, Roman could take him down. That way Roman could work in on those body locks that we were talking about prior. Or Roman's also really big. So Roman could just throw those looping punches in, grab the fence, grab the head, rush him against the fence, and then look for his takedowns. So that's the adjustment I would make. Basically, both of these guys there's more than one way to skin the cat, basically. They both have differentiating ways on how to win this fight. You just got to switch the angle, tweak it, go from boxing to kickboxing, go from counter wrestling to offensive wrestling, so to speak, for Roman. So that's what I got, guys. Let me know what you think. I'm really looking forward to this. Please check out all the other videos I did on fight announcements. Like, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you think. Comment below.